Well, the circumstances that bring us together today are obviously less than ideal. And my specific situation as well is also less than ideal. As you can see, the lighting here is a little bit tough. I'm on vacation out of the country. It's nighttime here, and I'm just going to have to do the best that I can to get to make this one as informative and presentable as possible. This is sort of a real-time reaction. All right, my wife and I are getting ready to go to bed. She informs me of this breaking news story involving Cowboys All-Pro return man Kavontae Turpin. And my initial questions, I'm sure some of which a bunch of you out there share, so that's why I'm sort of doing this real-time, giving my internal dialogue, right? And then I'm going to, of course, present the facts to you and discuss the actual ramifications legally, with the National Football League, and then, of course, with new head coach Brian Schottenheimer and his coaching staff and this new Cowboys culture. What is the result of this, or the potential ramifications? All right, here we go. All right, so let's start with the facts. Just give you guys exactly what we know first. Okay, Kavontae Turpin, Collin County Jail, arrested in Allen, Texas, with 2 misdemeanor charges. One was unlawful possession of a weapon, and the other was possession of marijuana, less than 2 ounces. ESPN's Todd Archer reports that since then, Kavontae Turpin has posted bail of $1,500. So he's no longer in there. My initial questions were, the first thing that came to my head was, wait, so the league legalized marijuana, like just this past year, I feel like, right? For some reason, I sort of banked that information into my head. Like that was just my assumption. I was like, I couldn't recall any specific report, but in my head, this was no big deal as far as marijuana alone with regards to the NFL. And by the way, this should be fully legalized relative to the other things that are currently illegal that they, potentially prescribe or endorse or persuade these players to do to cope with some of the things, the physical and mental ailments that they go through. There's some issues that need to be resolved, all right? But the truth, the current situation, the facts are the NFL has not officially legalized the use of marijuana. They have essentially just loosened their grip on the punishment if a certain set of ramifications or a certain set of circumstances were met. Let's discuss them. In its simplest form, okay, they basically, and this is from NFL.com, you can look this up and dive a little bit deeper if you choose, but the positive THC level was simply increased from 150 nanograms per milliliter to 350 nanograms per milliliter. So basically the league just made it harder for you to pass, or I guess fail, a test for THC. It's otherwise kind of, vague on what happens if you just get, if you're legally arrested or booked or charged with just possessing it, right? That specific note that I just mentioned, the 150 to 350, the loosening of the penalty, was just for a positive test, like a failed test. But in Kavontae Turpin's case, none of that information is public yet. So he was just booked for possession. So what does the league say about possession? I don't exactly know. I'll continue to do a deeper dive. Those of you who are watching this right now and know, please feel free to educate us all in the comments. And we appreciate that. So that's up in the air. But the second thing, and this is where it's a little bit trickier, murkier waters, unlawful possession of a firearm. My first thing in my head goes, is it not, like, legally, isn't that allowed? Whether it's, concealed or not, licensed to conceal or not. Can't you do that? After a little bit of research, and once again, I'm no expert on this subject matter, but it's very clear that legally in the state of Texas, there are certain circumstances that may restrict the legality of possession and carry of a firearm. Depends on the location, and it also depends on your history. I won't dig into that, but I will say that Kavontae Turpin's specific situation there's a caveat that needs to be added, okay? And maybe this is why, I'd like to answer some people's questions there. That was the same question that I shared. This is potentially why this charge was also added, because it's not fully legal. Like it's not just the Wild West with this law. So that's what we know as far as why he was booked. All right, those two misdemeanor charges. He's since been released. But how does the NFL respond to, as far as the commissioner's office, Roger Goodell, how do they respond to the possession or carry of not just marijuana, but also a firearm? Okay, what do they deem? How do they go about processing this, and what happens as a result of that, as far as fines or suspension, you name it, okay? But even beyond that is, how does Brian Schottenheimer and this new Cowboys coaching staff react with, of course, trying to hold every player accountable, every coach accountable, brand new culture, all these types of things. That's up in the air as well. That remains to be seen. We discussed, or have discussed all offseason, about the things that Brian Schottenheimer was doing to sort of change everything, the vibe, the chemistry, the relationships, the organization-wide chemistry, right? The very real, very relevant, and honestly the biggest remaining question was, okay, what happens when Brian Schottenheimer is inevitably faced with adversity? How does he respond to it, whether it be the heat of the moment or some sort of legal ramifications or actions away from the field, away from the team facilities? Like, what are his standards for, if guys slip up a little bit, right? How does he handle it? The outside lights here just cut off, but the show goes on. So it might be, you might just jump to the conclusion of, Kavontae Turpin is just a special teams guy. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Kick him to the curb, whatever. He's much more than just a special teamer, all right? He's the fastest ball carrier in the NFL last year. He's the only return man to have a punt and a kick return for a touchdown. I think Todd Archer reported that he had the highest return average of anybody in the league. And not to mention, he's an All-Pro. He's got that notch, in his belt, and he's the recipient of a 3-year contract extension, $18 million. So, well, I guess let's just take it a step further too. On top of that, right, reports of OTAs and minicamp that this is going to be a guy that the Cowboys offensive coaching staff has a plan for, right? An expanded workload within the framework of the offense. I obviously reported, you guys I hope have seen that article and the video, the YouTube video, on just using Kavontae Turpin as a running back. What the difference that it made, the coaching staff placing him, instead of handing him the football in motion at the snap and coming across the formation, putting him in the backfield, which simulated his vision at what he's used to seeing as a return man. It's a much closer simulation of that dynamic, right? And he thrived with it. His yards per carry went from 3 to 10. First 7 carries of the season going across the formation at the snap, 3 yards per carry. Next 5, they put him in the backfield, and he averaged 9.8 on those next 5 carries. So, dynamic player, okay? And then also too, he's a move player frequently, the man in motion, which in a lot of cases is one of the primary reads from the offense. And Brian Schottenheimer himself alluding to Kavontae Turpin's full mastery, or at least understanding of the concepts within the offense, hinting at and projecting an expanded workload. Wouldn't surprise me. I've said it in the past. I'll say it right now, and I'll stand by it. Kavontae Turpin might be the 4th highest target recipient in this Cowboys offense, depending on Jaden Blue's growth and development and maturation as an NFL running back. this is a big time deal. If he were to miss any sort of time via whatever, like I said, he was already released, so I'm pretty sure the legal things are done with for now. How does the NFL respond? How does the coaching staff respond? Those are the questions. As for the roster ramifications specifically, right? Obviously, we're getting ready to head out to Oxnard here in a couple weeks. I will be there in attendance, by the way, so make sure if you're there, y'all stop me and say what's up. Next man up. Once again, this is speculation. I don't know if he's going to have to miss any time. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, but if he were to miss any time at all, somebody's got to return punts. Somebody's got to return kicks. Who's the next, move player, the chess piece in 11 personnel? When you got CD, George Pickens, Kavontae Turpin out there, and Jaden Blue in the backfield, what's it look like then? Who's the next man up? Deuce Vaughn? A lot of special teams return man prowess. Does that open the door for him potentially? These are all the questions. I guess the thing that concerns me the most with this entire situation, because obviously I want the best for Kavontae Turpin. Yes, he's a fantastic talent with an exciting ceiling that still hasn't been reached yet. But ultimately, I want the best for Kavontae Turpin, the person, truly. And so the fact that what gives me the most pause is that this is not a first-time offense for him, or at least being involved with legal issues. All right. We shall see. I hope that this is a learning situation for not just Kavontae Turpin, but for every member of the Cowboys roster, and for everybody else otherwise in the National Football League. And then college players, high school players, you name it. Like, things can change, right? Yeah, everything can be going so well. You've put your troubles from the past behind you. You've turned yourself into one of the most dynamic playmakers on special teams or otherwise, the fastest ball carrier in the league, right? 3-year contract extension for a guy who's predominantly a special teamer. That's almost unheard of. Undrafted player too, And maybe there's reasons for that, right? Like, it's fair to suggest all these things. I know what y'all are going to say. But this is a kid who is not defined by, he shouldn't have been defined by his actions that occurred while in college or shortly thereafter, and then back in 2019, and then obviously right now, right? But, I hope that this is a learning situation for a lot of people, and I hope that Kavontae Turpin is a better man as a result of it. We shall see what happens. You guys let me know what your thoughts are on this whole situation, and remember that prayer changes things, and the war is already won. Talk to y'all soon.